On this episode of Blending Bourbon, Dixon and I discuss the state of the bulk whiskey market.
Blending Bourbon is the podcast that takes you beyond the barrel and behind the scenes of the whiskey industry with master blenders Dixon Dedman and David Mark Young.
Welcome back to another episode of Blending Bourbon. I am Dixon Dedman of 2XO Whiskey, I think. Joined, as always, by my dear friend and also master blender of Golden Sheaf, Mr. David Mark Young. David Mark Young, how in the world are you?
Fantastic, as always. How are you?
I'm good. Sun's shining.
Good.
It's a pretty day. I'm home.
Pretty day in Kentucky, not on the road.
Leave tomorrow.
Where are you off to tomorrow?
Tomorrow is Chicago. And in Chicago until just for one night. And then it is on to Milwaukee for 2 days.
Nice.
Or 2
well, man,
nights.
yeah, you're
3 days, whatever.
You're right back at it. You're right. You're right back on the road doing all the things. But you also have more products out there. That's what I'm trying to figure out is how you're juggling all these products. I know it's
it is
different.
it is a lot, and it just timing wise they all kind of came, and we're launching, a product in all three tiers of our program, kind of the fourth quarter, which is a really tough time for your distiller or your distributor and retail partners, because they're not at that point they're trying to reduce inventory and get as much out as possible, and so it's fine. You kind of think of there's debate, right? There's a debate on the from the marketing side. It's always it's perfect just in time for the holidays. The marketing people are always this is perfect. It's just, holidays. It's everybody goes and buys dad whiskey. And the sales side is man, it's just tough to, all the distributors, don't really want to talk about new stuff at the end of the year. They want to talk about moving the stuff they have in the warehouse. The retailers are, not, they're trying to hope people load up on the staples for the holidays. Not, they're not as interested in. Actually, they're not. I shouldn't say they're not as interested, but it's less about, we look at it, and I think on the, a lot of on one side, it's we'll put all this cool stuff in gift boxes. We'll do all these LTOs. We'll do, whatever. And a lot of these retailers are sitting on thousands of bottles of Tito's, and they just want to deplete inventory before the end of the year. So it's interesting. So a lot of travel around that. I get the week off for Thanksgiving, but other than that week, until the week before Christmas, I'm going somewhere.
On the road again.
That's
awesome. So here's a thought. A lot of this is off script regardless. But the
shocker that we would do something off script.
But we have our little conversations ahead of the podcast. We've got our topics and we try to stick to topics. But we start down a path here, and we're talking about O&D. O&D is a term. I remember first getting into this and the distributor saying, no, that's O&D. That's O&D. We're not trying to, and it's October, November, December is what that stands for. Not trying to get into new releases. It's a tougher sell. You're right. They're sitting on inventory. They're trying to get things out. But, you brought up a point about the staple things that come out. And when I think of O&D in the whiskey world, or in the American whiskey world, at least, I think about Pappy and Buffalo Trace Antique Collection. And I don't know if there's other holiday related things that come out. You think that has anything to do with O&D?
Yes,
because those are annual releases.
Yes, I do. I think
You want to talk about that?
We can talk about that,
Yeah.
certainly. When years ago, at least in Kentucky, before I was doing anything in the bourbon space, but just running the restaurant, it was always September, Bourbon Heritage Month. Everybody, and then at that time, and it kind of fell off. And then, it's been resurrected. The Kentucky Bourbon Festival, which occurs in Bardstown. Everybody wanted to have their marquee items available, at the Kentucky Bourbon Festival and during that time. So, it used to be September was Van Winkle, was Antique Collection, was Four Roses Limited Edition Small Batch, and we, with Kentucky Island, we started, it's got to be September. We got, September is the month. It was always September. And I think from a liquid perspective, what you see, when you get into September is your yield is the later in the year you go, or when you dump barrels in a cooler month, as soon as then you're getting some retraction of the liquid out of the oak, and it makes your yields slightly better, but there's some value added there. So it was always September, and then it was always kind of all stacked on top of each other. And then Sazerac, they were the first ones to kind of stagger those Antique Collection, Van Winkle. So they would push it back a little bit and then push it back a little bit. And
Right.
And, it just ended up, kind of moving out of September later into the year. I don't think there's any question that part of it has to do with yield. Part of it has to do with just, when they feel like those higher aged liquids have moved back out of the barrel a little bit, brought some of, another cycle of those sweet notes out of the oak. But also it's people get into, we all rack up credit card debt in O&D and then say, right. Oh shit, what have I done in January?
Right.
Make all your resolutions or whatever. But
yeah, makes sense.
There's something there for sure.
A lot of overlap. the coolest months. That's liquid's going dormant in a barrel. It's not changing. It's you're gonna. And I think that that I feel like that's the conversation nobody's having. It's always just expect it to be everybody looks forward to it. You get your BTAC sets come out and the Van Winkle sets, and everybody looks forward to it. But I think it's cool to take a look at why they're I think people would be shocked if all of a sudden there was some random release of Van Winkle or BTAC later in off season. That's what it's become. It's become that season, that time of year.
Yeah, and I can't speak to this specifically because I'm not smart like this, but that's I can't remember who was I having the conversation with, but a lot of these operate on a July to June fiscal year or whatever that is. So it's a good kind of like from the accounting side, there's like some sort of Q2 cash infusion type thing that I heard somebody talking about that one time. That is not an original thought. That is true. I've
right.
heard that, but because of the way they operate, it's kind of like you get this shot of cash, and then a lot of companies where they're higher volume brands, their big push to move those products is like April, May, June, because they're closing out that fiscal year or something like that. I don't again, above my pay grade, but there's, you can, in anything, especially in this business, you can be damn sure that there's some financial reason for doing things the way they do as well.
Yeah. And that's just it. Yeah, there's typically always some sort of monetary driver behind it. I think it'd be cool to see kind of behind the scenes that whole evolution of, things leading up to those releases, factor in all those things. But even just the creation of them, right? I mean, they're, what proof they're going to be, what, volumes, how early in the season that, just kind of what they're going. It'd be kind of cool to.
Yeah, and I've seen it. Back. I mean,
I'm sure you have
the BTEC stuff. Think about that every one of those, the amount of handwriting that goes on that entire collection, and so that process starts much earlier. It's not like, oh, we're seeing it in September. Right. A lot of times that stuff may even be coming out of the barrels in the spring, and bottled throughout the summer. It's not when I talk about the waiting for the liquid to come out of the oak. It's not they're not doing it a week before it launches. They're doing it before it gets hot again.
At least 2 weeks,
and then to get that done, I would say it happens. I mean. I saw, man, I don't know if I get in trouble for saying this or not. I mean, I just happened to be there, kind of on a tour. But I like George D. Stagg in like April or May was running down the line.
Flowing. Wow.
I mean, being bottled. Like that's, you know.
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool because it's, associated with a time of year. Mm-hmm. But to pull that thread and see behind the curtain, see what's going on all year round. It's like you said, it's not, I don't know if people just take that for granted. Like, oh, it's here. It's arrived. It's, they just put this stuff fresh in the bottle. It's fresh from the barrel. Well,
yeah. But I definitely think that, that was... And I would say that it's it's a phenomenon that is developed with the demand in this category. I mean, I've told you a million times back when when we opened the tavern in 2004. I remember tasting. I don't know. I'd tasted it before, but I remember like ordering. We just order a 3-pack of Pappy 23 on a Thursday, and it came on the truck on Friday. Like it was, that was when I would do these tastings and tell people, like, if you want the best bang for your buck, this Van Winkle Lot B 12-year-old stuff is $25 at the liquor store. So it's the growth in the industry and the demand has created the need, to kind of make these, release just at one time or one.
Yeah. So you keep bringing up these points of interest for me, and considering we've had recent conversations about new make and the current state of whiskey barrels, prices, all the things. And I don't know, I'm thinking, I'm gonna put you on the spot a little bit and just have you look into your magic ball and, considering the current state of things and what you've seen going back, 20 years, you're talking, the price of Pappy and the difference between then and now. But what are we looking at? What are we looking at, ahead as far as prices and even some of these, more rare whiskeys coming to market, coming of age? What does that look like for price points? And, is there's clearly a saturation right now of a lot of whiskey brands out there, and barrel prices have changed. They've fluctuated quite a bit. COVID really affected supply chain, just disrupted things. But now things are. Would you say they're back to where they?
Oh gosh,
were?
No.
Are they better? And how's that going to affect things in the future?
Well, I think you can't. I'm not sure that you can look at this anymore as like, oh, this is the bourbon thing, and this is how it's going to go. I mean,
right.
Sazerac, Four Roses, who are the other ones that have these like highly allocated? I mean, they know what they need. It's never going to change. There's always going to be a demand for Pappy Van Winkle. There's always going to be a demand for the BTEC. There's always going to be a demand for the Four Roses Limited Edition. This Maker's Mark, what's it called? Cellar aged.
Cellar aged, yeah. I had some this weekend. It was good.
It's good. I mean, it's like, it's $500-600 now. I mean, they're like the big guys ain't going anywhere, and their models are true. They're going to grow their core brands, both in the U.S. and internationally. They have doubled down on their own capacity. They're investing hundreds of millions of dollars in their production facilities, because they ain't going anywhere. They're the Yankees. They're Man United. They're it is what I think one of the things that is very interesting to me, having had multiple conversations with brokers here recently, who are reaching out to me and saying, and this is not one, this is multiple, 3-4 of these people that I've worked with and helped, and they've helped me, and whatever. But their comment is, there is so much liquid available right now.
Right.
Like, we've never seen this much liquid on the market. Do you know anybody that is looking? And the other part of that, which is I don't really get into this, but financing for purchases has become much more difficult for startup brands and things like that. So even a lot of these people who have a concept, have a brand, have a label, something they want to do, they're having trouble raising the cash or getting financing for these purchases, which is, and then, you've got all of these investors, speculative investors, and whether they're, just investing for themselves. I mean, I've seen, family estate planners, I've seen investment groups who have diversified out of the market into this, into barrels, whose barrels are hitting, 2.5, 3, 4 years old, and they're being listed, and they're all like, what's going on here? I was told that, at 4 years old, these barrels are going to be worth $4,000. And, there's, and on top of all of that, and I'm sure they'll be successful because they are successful people. But if you look at the number of, John and David's place, 100,000 barrels a year, up to 200,000, barrels a year, they won't have their own brand. It's all investment barrels, whether it's for a brand or for an investment. You look at the other one I just saw the other day, 50,000 barrels a year. You go down the list. I just, I don't, where's all this going? And I think, I think that the big guys are always going to be fine. They're going to eat, they're going to live, whatever. But, I'm not 100% convinced that, there aren't going to be some casualties.
Sure.
Because, people have put up a lot of money, whether it was for barrels or for a facility, that, you know, even if they're only selling 40% of their capacity to, you know, to other brands or something like that, it's just so much. What is it? Jump the shark. I think, you know, I think the bourbon explosion guy, you know, just went way overboard with, too many people thought they could, monetize the demand. And
Right.
I also start to see, and we talked about this before, you know, the consumers are, you know, they're less and less adventurous as they start to see these new brands roll out that are all essentially coming from the same source, made up of the same juice. So it's a very interesting time. I don't think any of that changes the demand for quality bourbon.
Right.
But I think, you know, the underlying landscape underneath the kind of commercial typical, you know, you have a source, you take your source to your distributor goes to market, whatever. But, you know, the kind of the market, the bulk market, the speculative investment piece, all of that stuff, the capacity that is just continuing to just explode.
Yeah.
I don't see how that's gonna, you know, even out.
Right. I think the demand changes a little bit in that more and more consumers are expecting higher quality at a lesser price point, because you're seeing these large conglomerates, you know, they're able to put out older whiskey at a lower price point in larger volumes. And so it's just elevating that expectation where, you know, it's no longer, you know, the bottom shelf stuff is, you know, it's less desirable because you can get higher quality, older. And that's the thing too, is just because something says it's older doesn't mean it's better. And consumers recognize that, you know, You'll see, not to name drop, but you'll see some of the older stuff come out, and it's this bulk stuff, you know, it's in the high 20, low $30 price point. And, you know, it's got an 8-10 year age statement on it. And, but it sits on the shelf. It's not, you know, I think initially people are like, oh, it's got to be better, let's buy it all up. And then, you know, they end up having all these end caps that are full, and eventually it gets bought up, they discount it or whatever. But that's just it.
I mean, I think there are so many opportunities, new opportunities for the consumer out there, because every time you walk into a liquor store, there's 7 new things that you've never seen before. That, you know, you got one chance. You got one chance to prove yourself with the consumer, and you know, we also live in a world where all it takes is one person to post a negative review or a negative comment or whatever, and that can hurt a brand as well. But it's also interesting as I start going around and I hear, you know, you talk at these, you know, consumer events and all that stuff, and it's just like, yeah, I mean, that entire section over there is however 15 different labels, but it's all the same juice from the same stuff with the same profile. Like, you know, they're not even trying to create something that is unique or has a unique profile or take a, you know, it's like, no, we're just, you know, and that's, I think people are starting to recognize that. Like, if you don't put in and I think they'll pay. I think they will pay for quality juice if there is, you know, if they know that somebody has done the work to develop something, create something unique. But there's just so much of the same stuff out there that's inexpensive and which is creating a situation where people are rushing some just kind of generic tasting stuff to market, and it's turning people off.
Yep. Yeah. I was just saying the other day, we've been doing a lot of tastings, just, at retailers, and it used to be when I first started doing this, which wasn't that long ago, you'd get your average whiskey drinkers, people that know the difference between bourbon and whiskey and rye, and they almost had a chip on their shoulder. Oh, where's this out of? Oh, okay, so you must source, and you must get your product from Indiana, and they sort of answer all the questions for you. They weren't asking you questions, and now, I think that's changed a little bit to where they're asking where. They're okay with the not. First question typically, where's your distillery? Oh, we don't distill, we source. Now it's, where do you source from?
Yeah.
So
and I think that's a fair question, and I don't have any problem with that. I also don't have any problem, but what I want as a consumer, if I'm a consumer, what I want to know is, okay, fine, you're sourcing, no big deal.
Yeah, right.
Tell me what it is about your product that makes it different
right.
than all the other stuff that comes that is sourced from that same place. Like, what are you doing? What do you do? Are you blending? Are you blending different distillates? Are you blending different mash bills? Are you you going top brick house? You going bottom brick house? Are you tell me what you're doing, because I don't need another rye from MGP with a different label on it.
Right.
Like, I don't need it.
At the same proof. Yeah.
Yeah. And I got them. You want to go look? I got like 9 of them.
Right.
So what are you doing to make it special? And I think, if that's my perspective, as a consumer, but it's a interesting, I knew it was coming. I did not know it was coming this fast. This glut of,
it seems
of
like
barrels.
it.
I mean, it is.
It seems like it's happened fast.
Like in a few months' time.
Yeah. Yeah. It'll be interesting to see how this, similar to the craft beer saturation years ago, boom, boom, boom. They built up, and there were thousands, tens of thousands of craft brewers, and we saw some of them go away because you can only make so many hazy IPAs and so many barrel aged, unique
Dude,
things.
I told you that. Have I told that story on here before?
Which one maybe?
I'll tell you the story, and then I got to go get my eyebrows waxed, so we'll have to jump. But
you do need to.
I was at this. This thing in Louisville. There's about 300 people there. It's called Bourbonomics, and it is about kind of the economics of bourbon. And this is probably six years ago. And I'm on this very interesting panel, and this is when I had no business being on this panel. Like 3 people must have called in sick or something like that, because it was Jim Rutledge, Wes Henderson, some peon named Dixon Deadman, and a guy named Alan Ladd, who is the son-in-law of Max Shapira, the owner of Heaven Hill. And we get up, kind of talk about everything, and somebody says, "Hey, what do you think about the growth in the craft bourbon space?" And I kid you not, and the whole crowd was like, "What? What do you think about these new distilleries popping up?" And Alan said, "Why don't you take a look at how many microbreweries are still around? Think about how many. There was one on every block." And think about how many are still around today. And he said, I have some advice for any of you in this room who want to potentially get into the distilling business. He said, why don't you just wait a handful of years, because there's going to be a lot of really nice used equipment for sale on the market.
Yeah.
And everybody's like, whoa, that's strong. That's pretty strong. But I'm not surprised, or will not be surprised if that doesn't end up being very true. I mean, if you look at it's, again, I got to get my eyebrows waxed, but like just the fact that Constellation has listed the High West distillery for sale.
Yeah.
And they're still gonna pay whoever owns it to make their product for them. But there's something there that makes me think, okay, why if you paid, I mean, they paid a fortune for that,
right,
several years ago. So why are they trying to unload that facility? Do they, I think, you can start reading into some of this stuff, what you will, I suppose. But if I'm building a distillery and building my program on bulk sales of barrels, and I contact some of these brokers and find out what's available right now, I'm starting to get real freaking nervous.
Right.
So,
yeah.
Sorry, I feel like I just preached for a long time.
You didn't. It was great. It was good.
Well,
but yeah, we'll wrap it. We'll put a pin in it right there.
Put a pin in it.
There. Get your eyebrows waxed.
Yeah, and, look, I gotta make sure the curtains are looking good.
All right. Well, that wraps up this episode.
All right, brother. Until next time.
Until next time.
Cheers.
Cheers. Don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, and share. Cheers, everybody.